Well, it's billed as one of the most competitive mountain ultramarathon races in the world. Imagine running over 170 kilometers through the mountains and valleys of France, Italy, and Switzerland, all in the one race. Well, two runners from this province were among the thousands who took on that challenge in the Hoka UTMB Mont-Blanc race late last month. Kelsey Hogan, who's originally from Steady Brook, finished the race in an impressive 29 and a half hours, putting her in 25th place for female runners. Kelsey is back home now in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and joins me now. So Kelsey, congratulations on your performance.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to also point out that your overall ranking was 167 out of the over 1,700 people who finished the race. How are you feeling about your performance?
Oh, I'm so thrilled and just, yeah, feeling very proud of the race that I ran. I really focused on being present and embracing the moment, and it's exciting when the results follow like that too.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around just how grueling this must have been. Over 170 kilometers is like running from St. John's to Clarenville in terms of distance, but it's not flat terrain. You're running through mountains. Can you describe what it was like?
Yeah, so this race is known for having really steep climbs that go on and very bouldery, rocky descents in a lot of places. And one thing that really helps me in those challenging moments is actually appreciating the beauty of that sort of rugged terrain. It's a challenge for my mind and body to work through all of that. And, starting at 6 p.m. in the evening, you run all the way through the night and into a second day. And I spend a lot of time noticing how beautiful the landscapes are, as I'm also noticing how challenging it is to move through them.
Yeah, it looks stunning. And you did this race last year and somehow managed to shave 5 hours off of your time this year. Last year you ran it in just over 34 hours, and this year you did it in just over 29 hours. And that seems like a huge improvement to me. How did you do that?
I think that 5 hours of difference in time really represents the past year that I've had taking myself seriously as a professional athlete, and not just coming at the race very differently. I had some familiarity with the course this year that really helped, and a very clear race plan with my support crew, but also the whole year in between where I focused a lot on training consistently, eating and sleeping well, and really just thinking about how I want to approach racing in general and approach running as part of my life.
Yeah, and performance in endurance sports is kind of an area of expertise for you, right? You have a master's in sports psychology, and you're working towards becoming a mental performance consultant. Can you tell me what that is exactly, and why does that area interest you so much?
Yeah, I feel so lucky to have a career of, academia and running that all kind of go hand in hand. In a sport like ultra running, it is so mental, and I think that the mental skills that we use when we're running ultras on the trail translate to other parts of our lives and other challenges that we approach too. So I think a lot about that as I prepare for these races, not just with the physical aspects of the training, but I spend a lot of time on the mental side as well. I spend a lot of time before a race like this problem solving. So knowing that it starts at 6 p.m. at night, knowing that I'm going to have low moments and moments where it's hard or I'm experiencing pain and muscle soreness and fatigue, I spend a lot of time before that thinking of how I want to problem solve that and having a plan in place, so that when I encounter those challenges on the trail, I have an A, B, C, D, E, F to Z plan of how I might approach them depending on the context that I find myself in at that time.
And congratulations on a stellar performance, and thank you so much for telling us about it.
Thank you.
Well, now let's speak with Wayne Walsh from Paradise, who also completed the UTMB race this year. So Wayne, you ran 170 kilometers in 33 hours. Kelsey mentioned the steep terrain and elevation. Can you tell us more about what that was like?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. A lot of people say that, oh, you ran from, from St. John's to Clarenville, except for the fact that, there's 10,000 meters of elevation gain along the way. I guess to put that kind of in perspective, we do a lot of training here on the East Coast Trail. The highest hill that we can get from sea level up is 200 meters. So some of these mountains, it's unlike anything that we have locally, obviously. But it's you're climbing for, it's not just 10 or 15 minutes. You're literally climbing for hours on end. The peaks of these mountains are 3,000 plus meters high. Glaciers on there, waterfalls, snow-capped mountains, and as the sun's coming up, it's starting to light up kind of the peaks of the mountains that are off, well off into the distance. But yeah, it's a sight that'll definitely stick with me for a long while.
And it's amazing to me that you had room in your brain to actually be able to enjoy all of that beauty, considering the physical strain you must have been going through, the pain, and also the mental strain you must have been under as well.
It's an odd thing, as an ultra runner, you always kind of strive for what we call a flow kind of state. So you kind of forget about the pain and discomfort that you've kind of been suffering for the past X number of hours, and you just get into this rhythm, and you hear your breathing and you're moving along. It feels effortless at that moment. But unfortunately, the highs like that only last so long.
So virtually no sleep, really, through this whole thing.
I didn't, but I probably could have used a nap later on in the race.
2,700 people started the race, but 1,000 of those people didn't even finish the race. So it sounds like it's a real accomplishment just to cross the finish line. Did you have any point where you were like, oh, I don't know if I can get through this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably one of the third last climbs. I think the climb was, it was 500 and some odd meters. And that's, when you kind of put that in perspective, that's the height of the CN Tower, except for the fact that it's just over, 2.5 kilometers to get up that high. I can remember just, even my triceps were hurting from pulling myself with my hiking poles, getting up this hill. And I consider myself to be pretty stubborn, and I've got a bit of strength. And I remember thinking, like, how in the name of God is anyone able to get up over this hill? Like, I don't know. And the elites, they just run up the thing. I don't know how they can even do that.
Well, Wayne Walsh, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.